The support of donors was really key for me in my seminary experience, and I think, money, the money that was given to me really enabled me to and freed up space in my own time to focus on my coursework and actually to do some jobs that, specifically research assistance jobs, that I would not have been able to do if I had, had to work a different kind of student job. So it really enabled me to do a lot of things that prepared me for the later academic work that I would do in my PhD program, but then also reading more broadly in areas of theology and ministry. So it allowed me to focus on some things a little bit more than I would have been able to otherwise.
And this is kind of an aside, but did you find weren't you looking for people who would give you?
Yeah, I had several donors, and I met one couple at one of the dinner nights that Sem Relations had put together, and I have been trying to get in contact with them. It's really important to me that I be able to reconnect with them. I have not yet, though, in answer to your question.
So why is it important for you to be connected with the people who support you?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important that they see that their money resulted in something, not to reduce students to products or the results of investments, but to say, look, your money is going toward, in a concrete way, going toward the work of the church, and in my case, toward the education of pastors. And so I think it can be a mutually encouraging kind of encounter. I get to say thank you for enabling me to do so many things, and freeing up my schedule, and creating a net of security that allowed us to just explore a bit more, but then also look at how your money is benefiting the church, and look how I'm attempting to take advantage of those opportunities. So I think it can be mutually encouraging. The financial support that I received really freed up space and time for me to focus on preparing for, in my case, academic work, and preparing for the PhD program. And so I think I would not have been as prepared entering into those programs as I was, and a large part of that is due to the financial support that I received. That's a great question. I first felt the call to pastoral ministry at the age of 14, and so from that point on, I was really attempting to plan ahead for that. And so I did the elementary education degree in part because I looked around and I thought, not all pastors are great teachers. And I thought that it would benefit my future ministry to have some kind of pedagogical foundation and to have actual time in the classroom. And in my case, that was in the Tacoma School District in Washington State. And so I don't regret that decision at all. It was intentional insofar as I was attempting to prepare for the ministry. I didn't at that time foresee that I would be in academia. But I think, again, it's easy to see how a degree in elementary ed would benefit a professor at a later point. And it wasn't really until my first or second year of seminary that I realized that I really had a shift in thinking. I at one point thought I will be in the parish and I will be kind of a standard parish pastor. But then something happened where I realized that no, my parish is the classroom, and that's where the sweet spot was for me. That's where I found really found my calling and found a lot of energy. And so.
And so in what ways have you felt kind of affirmed in those decisions? I mean, are there specific examples where you say, you can look back and say, that was a time where it was a validation for me?
Right. So many of these validations of call have come through people. And so there are two particular mentors I would lift up. The first one is a church history professor from the first seminary I attended, which is the King's College and Seminary in Los Angeles, and I was his research assistant, and he encouraged me and said, you really have gifts that could be used in academia. Maybe you should think about switching tracks. And then the other person would be Terry Fretheim, who is now a colleague and friend, but at the time was my teacher, and he looked at some of my writing and said, again, Michael, you have the gifts to go on and do this, and he encouraged and coached me through that process, all the way through that process, in fact. Yeah.
And so what would you say to someone who wanted to know that their investment was kind of making that impact? And you've kind of touched on this.
Well, I think investing in theological education, it's like planting a garden, right? I mean, you put the seeds in the ground and you apply the water as needed, but it's an extremely long-term investment. It's something that you're investing decades into the future. And so I would say you apply the principles from the garden into this situation, that you may not, even in your lifetime, see the forest that will eventually grow there, but you can always go out to the seed bed, go out to the garden, and see those sprouts coming up, and apply water as needed. And to just parse that metaphor a bit, what I mean is you can come to Luther Seminary, interact with the students, sit in on classrooms, and see how quite literally how your money is at work in raising up the future leaders of the church. Again, you may not ultimately see the forest grow, but I think you can see those little sprouts popping up through the ground. The same thing that drew me to Luther Seminary as a student also drew me to Luther Seminary as a professor, and that is that Luther, in the broader world, as I see it, is really known for two things. The first one is a strong commitment to the life of the church. Its teachers, its staff, its administration are deeply embedded and invested in the church going forward and learning how to engage culture and engage the big questions of our day through the lens of our Christian tradition, and in our case particularly our Lutheran tradition. And so that was the first thing that drew me. The second thing was that it was known for academic excellence and for, again, raising up pastors and leaders who had a firm grasp on things like church history and things like biblical studies and theology. And so that dual focus on the church and academics is really what drew me. I would say that Luther is unique in that it is committed, yes, to our traditional Lutheran theology. It's committed to the freedom of the gospel that Luther and Luther's heritage leaves to us. I also think that Luther is on the forefront of educational innovations, and I'm thinking in particular of the new curriculum that we're currently implementing. There is so much in there that is attempting to just be right on the cutting edge of pedagogical theory and of assessment, that I think Luther really stands out among the other seminaries of the U.S. in that it is forging this way forward in areas of distance learning, or otherwise known as online education. Also in our contacts with international schools, we have faculty and students who are visiting our campus and who are visiting other campuses across seas and are just having this incredible exchange. And I think this kind of mixture of international interaction and of cutting-edge pedagogy really makes Luther stand out among other schools. I would really like my students to leave with a couple of different things. The first is a deep love of Scripture and its stories and the way that it imagines the world, the many different ways that Scripture imagines the world. I want them to leave recognizing how diverse Scripture is, how colorful it is, how many different vantage points it actually brings. I want them also to leave with a willingness to engage with great faith and daring the issues of our day, and to look at the problems and the possibilities of bringing Scripture into conversation with those things. I want them to leave with a sense of courage to enter into those issues, that a sense of being able to be innovators within the church and pushing the church forward into the future and engaging some of these really critical issues. Okay, good. If there were a couple things that I would hope my students would leave this, one is just a love of the Bible, and especially of the Old Testament, which is my area of specialization. There is so much there to be mined and to be explored, and I think it really is underpreached. We don't take advantage of these stories enough, and so part of my how I see my role here is to show people how valuable these stories really are, these Old Testament stories and texts and poems, and to really ignite people's imaginations around those texts. I forgot it.
That was really good. That's
not what Editing's about.
Yeah, well, gosh. Okay. Am I able to just pick up on the second point, or is it going to really screw? I can start over.
Well, if you do it in one stream, it might be...
It's a lot easier
it's a
for
lot
you.
easier.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I've done that kind of work before also.
What's that?
We don't have B-roll or anything to cut over.
No,
I'm so
yeah,
used
there's
to
not a
B-roll
lot of
being able to,
B-roll.
like,
Oh,
those
yeah,
little, like,
yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay, let's look at it. If I reduce it to words.
I could just cut to that
Oops.
that nice painting
There you
for a
go.
while.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Old Testament Innovation Global South teaching. Okay, here we go. Some of the things that I hope my students will leave with is, one, just a great love for the Old Testament and for its imagery and its poetry and its stories. There is so much there for us to mine and for us to take advantage of. But I think, the Old Testament can be a very intimidating text, and it's so far removed from us chronologically, and sometimes it feels like theologically it's so far removed from us. And so part of what I hope to do is to break down those barriers of intimidation, that sense that the Old Testament feels far away and inaccessible. So I think that's part of what I want to do. The second thing is that I want to help raise up students who are willing to take risks. We are in a world that is that's heavily marketed to, at least here, for sure, here in the West. And so I think we need to think really on the cutting edge of innovation and of things like marketing, and how are we really going to get that message out to people. And so I hope that students will leave my class with a confidence and a willingness to think, this is so cliche, but outside of the box. Think in ways that might at first seem risky, but I think those are the kinds of things we need to do in order to bring the church into the future. Thirdly, really the heart of Christianity now, in terms of its growth, is shifting to places like South America, to Africa and Asia. And so it's my hope that I can encourage students specifically in North America, but also our European students, to look to those areas of the world where the Spirit is really working. The Spirit is, of course, working here as well, but there are special things going on in these areas of the world, and it's my hope that we will be willing to kind of engage those other leaders and just see what's going on there and what we can learn. And then finally, we are, as all of us know, within a technological revolution. As we go, it is changing all the time, the digital landscape and the technological landscape. And I hope to encourage my students to try and maximize the tools that are available to them, the technology, and to use that really for the furtherance of the gospel. That was better. that felt a little bit better. The kind of leader that we're trying to raise up here at Luther is one that can take the elements of our Christian tradition. I think of our Lutheran tradition in particular. We have things like the Book of Concord and the Bible itself, Old Testament and New Testament, and the Apostles' Creed, and to take those texts and those ideas and to then translate them into arguments and into statements that are going to connect with people outside of the church. I think part of the problem that we face now that we live in what we call sometimes a post-Christendom reality, where the culture is not biblically literate and literate in these ideas, one of the challenges we face is the statements that we make don't often seem to answer the questions that are being asked in the culture. And so part of the work that we have to do, and the burden is on professors and it's also on students, is to think, how can we pose our statement, or how can we make statements and arguments in a way that really addresses the deep existential questions that are present in the culture right now. That's a difficult task, but it's one of the reasons why it's important to invest in theological education, because it allows the professors and students the space to think hard about how we can take these concepts and translate them into the culture. Lisa, does that touch on it in a little bit, or?
Like, that about sums
Okay.
it up.
I mean, that's all theory. Let's see if it works.
Right.
No, that's really well articulated. Thank you.
You want it to say? You want to sing a song?
No, I don't sing that well. No, I'm happy to help out.
That was really good stuff. I think
Okay.
we are more than set. So
Okay.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for doing this.